who we've hosted here before. He's a businessman, of course, an entrepreneur, and a public speaker, an inspirational speaker. In this case, Faizal Luttamaguzi. He doubles as the founder of tours of Stockholm, tours of London, and tours of New York. The last I heard, tours of Oslo was just steps away. That we shall hear much about that. But I want to thank you all our dear viewers, and kindly requesting you to please share the link, share this show, invite a friend to come tune in with us. Faizal Luttamaguzi, can you please greet our viewers?
Moses, thank you for having me back. It's always to share these insightful conversations with you. And I was delighted last time I was online with the questions and comments and feedback that people have. So I'm hoping for a like-minded interaction this time around. But yes, it's always a pleasure to speak to my fellow Ugandans in Scandinavia. And yeah, looking forward to see what everyone has to say. And hopefully you'll leave today's session having learned something new.
Yes, thank you so much, Faizal. Yeah, just a few seconds as we make a few invitations here for people to join us.
All right.
It is a topic with the title Beyond the Challenge. The word challenge is a constant in life, and facing challenges, ups and downs, is something that is just in black and white. But there is also always a question that the happening of events is one we have no control about, but the perception and what we do is what we have in control. Today, we are delighted to have Faizal Luttamaguzi speak about this. Just for a moment, just to make a few invitations here. Yes. Okay. Beyond the challenge. Faizal, I want to make a very quick reference to our previous show when we hosted you here. I remember when I randomly asked you where you see yourself in a couple of years and what you look unto. You told us that you dream of becoming a philosopher, something I found very, very moving and outrageous. I mean, a philosopher in 2022, this is something really catchy. Before we dive into our topic today, just to bring attention of those who probably didn't watch this show, or maybe who missed a bit of that, a philosopher in line with business, a philosopher in line with speaking to masses, merging this philosophy a bit of it. Tell me more about that.
Well, when I answered that my dream is to be a philosopher, I mean a philosopher of life, because what I've come to realize is that the way we live life today, you have your commitments, work, school, family. There's rarely a natural element to just talk about life for the sake of talking about it. Because in my personal journey throughout life, I've realized that the moments where I get the most out of life are in the discussions with other people. There is no agenda. There is no end goal. You just discuss things for the sake of discussing them. So going to school, I've always been fascinated with the historical aspects of society and human life, where, you know, if you read a history book today about ancient Greece, you can read about, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, all these men in history, their title were philosopher. This is what they did for a living. They didn't work, they didn't do carpentry or bricklaying. they philosophized. And looking at what is philosophy, you discuss life, you discuss the bigger aspects of life. So to me, I love this notion. And I know most of the times where I really get something out of life is if I sit at a dinner with friends and strangers and we just talk about concepts. I'll give you an example. Earlier today, right? I was at lunch with a few friends and family, and I asked them this question. And to me, it brought on such an interesting discussion. Like we sat there for hours. I asked them, there were a few in the company who were parents, right? They just had kids. Their kids are at 2, 3 years old. So I asked them, when you became a parent, does the love for your child automatically outweigh the love for your partner? Like, is it always a given that, like, right? So I asked them this question because I thought about it. I said, okay, every parent says, oh, I love my child more than anything else, right? You know, this is a given. But then I started thinking, but the reason why this child is on this earth is because you loved your partner, right? You said, I love this person so much that I want to create a child with them. So when the child comes, does that automatically mean that the love for your child will always outweigh the love for your partner? So I was wondering about this earlier. So I asked this to the people that we're having lunch with. And of course, to my delight, there are so many interesting answers in this. So these are the type of things I love to spend time on, because all of a sudden, there was one couple there. One of them said 100%. As soon as we had our son, inside of me, I felt like I can never love anyone as much as I love this boy. I love him more than I love my partner. But his partner, she said, no, he only exists because of my love to you. Right? That's the only reason he's here, because I loved you so much that our love spilled over and created a child. So, and see, to me, this fascinated me. So, you know, these are the kind of discussions that I think we don't make enough room for.
Yeah, sure.
So this is what I mean when I say, if I could spend all my day just being a philosopher, having conversations like this, I think I would be a very happy man.
Yes, thank you for that insight. You see, there are things we hear, we come across on social media. People speak, but we never tend to swap the coin, to look at the other side of it. Yeah, being a philosopher, okay, someone would think that maybe this guy wants to rub shoulders with the Socrates, the Pilatos, but it really it impresses, and it's quite amazing to see how you look at this. And today we bring Faizal Luttamaguzi to you, our dear viewer out there, who chooses your farm always. Faizal Luttamaguzi, just a bit of him, he triples as a businessman, as a philosopher. I would also attach that, and an inspirational speaker. His concept as a businessman, he is the founder of Tours of Stockholm and the chain of tours of travel companies. But he has a concept hinged on the wooden bike trips. You promised to come to Oslo very soon. That we shall look at later on. But we have a very huge topic, beyond the challenge. Faizal, as a businessman, you probably have gotten bruises of the pandemic in line with business, more so your nature of business. People have a chain of stresses, a chain of challenges, name it, from domestic, commercial, to the scale of national challenges. But we always reach a point when we feel we are barred from the future or moving affront by these challenges. I need you in this session we are to have here to really help us understand and get this perspective of what is in there beyond the challenge. Yes. In the first place, I'll need you to speak from personal experience. During our session last time, you actually shared with us how you quit your job. Okay? Because there were so many reasons, of course, why you did that. But most recently, you have a business which is in tours and travels, and you have a family. And you have a family, and you have a And when the country, the whole world was put down to their knees, to its knees, you suddenly were a victim of that.
Mhm.
Speak to us how you maneuvered through, how you came back on top through all this.
Okay. Yes.
To their knees, to its knees.
I think
you suddenly were a victim
my
of that.
first
Speak to
part
us
of that answer. I think everyone who's old enough to be old enough obviously knows that life always brings you surprises that you're not ready for. And
Sure.
most often than not, those surprises are unpleasant. Whether it can be losing your job, whether it can be forced to move to another country, forced to learn a new language, to losing loved ones. I think we've all experienced some version or even all of these versions. And what I've quickly, to me personally, what I've realized is that I take on these challenges the best way every time I come to the conclusion that I am in charge, I am in control. And this to me is a notion that's very profound in how I view life. The notion of being in control is to me very, very important is into how I see my living on this planet. So with that said, let's talk about the pandemic, right? As you correctly say, I run a business that operates in tourism and visitors. So I'm dependent on people traveling. So of course, 2 years ago, when the whole world shut down, I was affected immediately. Literally, I went from thousands of visitors to zero, absolutely zero. Not even half, not even, just zero. So of course, the first thing that happens, you are aware of how zero control you have, right? That's the first thing that happens. So you just like, okay, I'm actually not in control. And I know how important this is to me. So of course you start worrying, but not so much for yourself. I think, because I know you look at your parents, they start worrying. Oh, wow. Oh my God. What is going to happen to our son? How is he going to pay his next bill? All these things, da, da, da. But for me, again, I always find comfort in looking at where can I make a difference for myself. So when I say that I'm in control, because it helps me to make good decisions. So when the pandemic comes, we all live in countries where immediately there are two options, right? First of all, the government tells you, hey, come to us and we can help you survive this difficult period. We don't know how long it will be for, but you can get grants, you can take a loan, you can get some tax exemptions. That's the first immediate solution there is on the table. So this was the obvious answer, right? I know my mother, she started sending me links. Oh, this is how you should apply for the grant. Right away, immediately, I said, no, wait, stop. Because again, this was what happens is that I'm not the only person on this earth affected. If anything, every single person on this planet is affected with what's happening. So immediately, it's not towards me personally. So I can take away my ego, right? So it has nothing to do with me. Everyone is equally as affected. So to me, that means, okay, the playing field is equal. We're all playing from the same field right now if we just look at only at Corona. So for me to take this grant, I know 99% of every other business will take this grant. They will take this help. So the first thing I ask myself is that, do I have to take this grant to survive? And first, of course, you're panicking. Oh my God, I don't have any customers. And you say, of course, I must take this grant. I said, no, hold up. Why? Why do you have to take this grant? What's the purpose of this? You're taking a loan from the government. A loan usually means you will have to repay it.
Yeah, sure.
So what is the cost of this loan, the true cost? If I take it now to survive for the next 1 or 2 years, what will be the long-term cost for me to take this loan? And the second thing, if I take a grant just to survive, if I don't have any customers, what am I going to do with my time? So the government gives me the grant. Okay, economically, I'm surviving. But what about my time? If I don't have any customers to serve, I'm just going to sit at home to wait it out. Of course, I said, okay, I'm young enough. I am educated enough. I have my both feet and hands. So I'm a working condition. So what can I do besides taking the grant? So immediately in my head, I decided I will not take this grant. I will not take this loan. Why? Because what happens in my head, it forces me to become inventive.
Exactly.
If I need to come up with alternative ways of surviving, if I take away the option of taking a grant, what will happen in my head? So I think this is an exercise I've done several times that actually have shown to be very useful for me. Is I minimize my own options to put myself in a position where I need to become inventive to solve the solution. And usually these are the moments where my most creative ideas show up. So in short, this is what I did, is that I decided not to take a loan, not to take a government grant, not to accept any of this, just to see how I would come up with alternative ways. And we can take this out of the context and put it into any person who, again, who has children. Earlier we spoke about children, right? Every parent can tell you is that when they are forced to come up with inventive ways to make sure that their child has food on their table, they will come up with ways, right? And I think, especially Ugandans, I remember the last time I was in Uganda, I would be fascinated by the fact that people didn't have 9-to-5 jobs. As naive as I'd become, I've lived in Europe so much, I assumed everyone has 9-to-5 jobs. But then when you go to Uganda, people don't go to work at 9 o'clock and come back at 5, but yet they have children to feed. So I was like, how do you find money? And I have this uncle, we would leave in the morning, we'd be out in Kampala all day. And then at some point he's like, oh, you see, this guy's car has broken down. I know enough about mechanics, I can help him. So he helps the guy. He said, okay, give me a few shillings. And then an hour later, he helps somebody else to do. And you see how inventive he is, right? Jago jago. I think we have this now. So when you're forced to be inventive and be, quick on your feet, I think there's always interesting aspects of it. So I try to exercise myself in minimizing the options, because the worst thing that can happen, we all live in countries where there are good enough systems to catch you. So compared to Uganda, if you fall, you can fall really far and you can fall hard. But in Sweden or Norway or Denmark, the worst thing that can happen, you go to social services, you ask them for some money. So that's why I don't feel fear. So I take away that option. Take it away. In my head, it doesn't exist. Move it. Loans doesn't exist. Grants doesn't exist. Then what? What do I need to do now? So when I wake up in the morning, I am a little bit more inventive. So this is how I managed to survive the corona, by eliminating options and therefore coming up with alternative ways of finding revenue streams.
Yes, thank you so much, Faizal. Yes, I see a personality. I see a very aggressive personality to success, that you don't want to sympathize with yourself or even people sympathizing with you. Yes, but this is actually now Faizal. I want now to take an extract from Faizal and look at someone below average, because now I look at you as someone within the range of average. Okay, someone who believes that when there is a grant, I should go for it. Someone who doesn't have this reserve energy to ride with in crisis. So we shall come back to that. But to you, our dear viewer who has just joined in, we are right here with Faizal Luttamaguzi. He lives in Stockholm, Sweden, and is the founder of Tours of Stockholm. Of course, someone would want to ask, why are these guys using English? Previously, we hosted him and he made it crystal clear that he has lived here for quite some time. He acknowledges that he's a Ugandan and a Muganda, but his Luganda is not good enough to express himself. The granularity, that's what the term you used. With the granularity you'd love to express yourself with. But yes, away from that, we want to send our condolences to the family and of course Uganda as a whole for the loss of the late Right Honorable Speaker Jacob Oulanyah. We live in the diaspora. but we also agree and believe that our hearts are here, but as well as home. So we want to send our condolences and pray that the Lord strengthens majorly the family of the deceased. Faizal, you were strong enough not to ask for a grant and resilient enough to know that you have to test your mind to be inventive enough. But let us look at Moses, who doesn't have that skill and ability. How would I manage through a challenge when I'm not as gifted as you?
I honestly don't think it has to do with strength or skills. This is my personal opinion. I really don't. I think I usually like to say is that the best things happen on the other side of fear. And I'll tell you, we all have fear. So of course, you look at a situation and it looks frightening because you don't have the contacts you need. You're not getting the opportunities you deserve. You're not getting, so all I have to say has nothing to do with skill. It's scary, but if you're calm enough to stay a little bit longer in that scary situations, again, I think it's about survival. Then your brain kicks in like, I must survive. And in order to survive, because just speaking with you, I would 10 times out of 10 probably sign off that you are indeed a more intellectual person than I. So I honestly don't think it has nothing to do with that, because I know I am not the most intellectual person. I am not the most gifted person. I am not the most driven person. But I think is where I found solace, I guess, inside my heart to always dare to do these things is I realize is that when something becomes scary, just like the world situation, it was scary for everybody. I don't sit here and tell you like, I know what I'm doing. Again, tourism, no customers. First thing that happens, you panic.
Sure.
Of course, you said, I have mortgages to pay. I have people to take care of. Where my revenue stream coming from? Because I don't have a job. I am the job, so to speak. So of course, panic kicks in. But then once you calm down and you let it sit there for a while, it could be days, it could be weeks, but you just stay in that. And then once you stay long enough, on the other side of that is usually when the solution appears for itself. So to answer your question more directly, for someone like you, this is the advice I guess I would give, because I've been in plenty of situations where I felt that I'm in over my head, that I am definitely not skilled enough, I am not good enough, I have not studied hard enough. And situations like that occurs all the time. But I think these are the situations where the best of me shows up eventually. So I mean, call it faith. Maybe you believe in something that's not in front of you, or you believe in your ability to solve something. This is, I guess, what I would put it down to.
Okay. Yes, you see, Faizal, we are different. Mm-hmm. And of course, our difference is also taken advantage of propaganda, feelings, how we control our feelings. And of course, the people we trust, they are people who have done things that way for years. And we only borrow a leaf from them and do them exactly how they used to do them. So the aspect of being tested is one that really shows a clear-cut difference between humans. Mm-hmm. I love it when you tell me that it's not a skill, it's not an ability, but anyone can be that way. Should I, you call it a survival mode. Let's scale it down to immigrants who came to Europe or American, generally in the diaspora, and they had to start from scratch. Some have made it. Others are still struggling, and others gave up. What do you think draws a clear-cut difference between these three groups of people?
Oof. I think that is a very complex question, and I don't think I have any right to give an answer on it. And because outside of myself, I can never have any input or any judgment on someone's journey. Because I just say we've all come here for our reasons and we have all our struggles. And as you say, some people make it in the sense of making it. Other people are still feeling like they're still feeling that they're on step one. And as much as they're trying, they're not getting past step one, right? So, and other people, you have no idea what they went through to get here, like the sacrifices they have made. And as we spoke in the last meeting, I'm very aware of the fact that the moment I landed in Sweden at 5 years old, I was a Swedish citizen. So I have never had to think of what it feels like to wait for your permits. I've never had to endure the struggle of being in a camp and, not knowing if I'll be in this country or not. Because back in the early 90s, we came in 1990, as soon as we landed, they gave us a passport. They said, welcome, you're now a Swedish citizen. I didn't even know the language. So to me, I'm very aware of this privilege. And so therefore, I can never have any opinion on what someone else has gone through. All I can share is, I guess, okay, so I remember someone told me once is that if you always tell yourself that you have an option, and eventually this will be the case for you. So he said, you're a prisoner. They put you down into a cell. And immediately you look around like, I have no options to affect my circumstances. I'm locked in this room. There are no windows. There are no doors. I have zero options to affect what happens in here. And this person told me, but yeah, the option you have is what you choose to think about, right? What you choose to control in your head. Again, so always break it down to like, what can I control? And in that moment, you can't control your environment. You can't control what time you get fed. You can't control. These are out of your control. So you will just let it go. Love it. And then, okay, what can I control? I can control my thoughts. So then hold on to that. This is the only thing you have control over. And that should be your whole entire world in that situation. And I always like this analogy because I always started with that, and then you move outwardly and move outwardly. So to say someone you said who is maybe your situation, right? So you come to a country, you're still waiting for these situations. Like, what is it that you can control? And for you, I think you've done amazing with this forum. The fact now that you have this UG forum with 2,000 followers, to you, that's 2,000 contacts where you can utilize that and have conversations like with people like me or others that I've seen on the show, whether it's doctors or people in other professions. So that's the one environment you can control because you're in the driver's seat. You decide that, okay, 4:30 we're starting this show, and at 4:30 people will tune in, and you decide what topic, and then so this is the world that you are in control of, and therefore you see, okay, how can I utilize this? So okay, usually when I do motivational speeches, especially at schools, because I realize how important this is at school. There's usually this example I give them, because I know it really works on students. I usually tell them is that it started early, but I started to practice this in my head, to always look at what is it that makes me stand out in any given situation. Like, and I told them, like, honestly, now it comes automatically. Because the reason I tell them this is that as an immigrant, you move to Sweden, and guess what? For the rest of your life when you live here, you will always be a minority. There's nothing you can do about it. You can cry about it, you can think it's unfair, but yes, as a Black person in Sweden, you will always be a minority. Or a Black woman with a hijab, triple minority, right? Like there's facts. It always be facts. You can never undo that.
A black woman with a hijab.
3 strikes.
And actually, that's a bitter fact, by the way.
So, okay. So then what I've told myself, I always train my head. I walk into a room. The first thing I register is what makes me stand out here. And sometimes I walk into a room, I'm the only Black person there. Other times I'm walking, I'm the only Swedish person in the room. Other times I'm walking, I'm the only African. Sometimes I walk in, I'm the shortest person in the room. Other times, so I always try to see what is it. Other times I walk into a room, I'm the only man there. So to me, I always pay attention to this thing. Why? Because the way the human mind works is that it's much easier to remember the person that stood out rather than the masses. So Moses, you walk into a room, into a meeting, there are 10 women and you're the only man. Guess what? When these women go home to their families today to sit down with their family, oh, how was your day today? Oh, I had this meeting. Oh, there was this one man there in this room full of women. You will be remembered no matter what, right? Or you walk into the room, oh, yeah, I had this meeting. Oh, there was this one black person there. Facts, you can't change it. So this is just the way the human mind works, right? Or in Uganda, you go into Makerere market, you will see one albino person. You will go home and you will talk about, hey, I saw an albino person today. Just facts. So when I think about this, I said, okay, I know now I will be remembered whether I was the guy with the wooden bicycle, they will remember me, or I was the only man there, or I was the only black person there. So the next thing for me to do is to give them something to remember me by.
Wow.
Either I make an action, because already they will talk about me. I know they will talk about me like, wow, there was this one guy there. He was, and then I say, okay, what impact did I leave there? Because I know I have a lot of friends. If they walk into a room and they are the only immigrant in there, it's an intimidating situation to be in. And I think we've all encountered it. You walk in like, oh, wow, I don't belong. But why? I love that situation. And I say, okay, if I'm the only immigrant in here, every person in here will remember me. So I need now to say something of value, or I need to do something of value. Because I see it as representation. Because if I leave that room or that meeting and I left a good impact, so maybe if they had terrible experiences before with immigrants, if they leave there now and I left them with something positive, they say, okay, maybe I was wrong. This is my naive hope, at least, is that I impacted them enough to think, okay, I will talk about this person, but now I will talk about something positive because he left me something worthy of talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So I think this exercise really helps to be okay with the fact, because I don't know why this is, well, in a sense, of course, I know the word, the way the word looks like, it's an issue to be a minority. And I say that with all the respect because, again, I have a mother who lived here equally as long as me. She's smarter than me. She's more educated than me. She's, the amount of jobs she has applied for and never just given the opportunity, you can fill a whole box with it. So I know what reality looks like. So therefore, but I always taken those lessons to see, okay, what can I do that's going to blow their mind? They already will. So this, I usually tell kids in school about this because this is an exercise that have helped me to always like, hey, they will look at you, they will remember you. So when they leave there, at least they remember you by the right things.
Yes, Faizal, yes, no wonder you have a dream of becoming a philosopher. You see, when the question I asked is one that is really abstract. I know, and it's a very broad one. But when when I face challenges, as the topic is today, I tend to believe that there could be people who can maneuver through faster than me. Mm-hmm. This very question I've been asked, but I couldn't have a straight answer. Mm-hmm. And I loved your word selection and sensitivity when answering this. To me, it speaks a lot about you as a person, but you've all as well conveyed so much about this. You cited out survival mode. You cited out survival, rather as standing out in a crowd where you seem to be the minority. So in other words, you're being a minor or a minority in this case becomes a blessing in disguise. Mm-hmm. So the question about the three categories of immigrants, who is more, who has made it and maybe what is the difference, mm-hmm. that I personally may never have a straight answer. But picking it up from you, there is so many echoes I would maybe also piece up. But why I bring in this question is that this show is, of course, targeting in Uganda and around the world, but particularly Ugandans in the diaspora. We are so much tested, and we are also tied up in the comparative mode, because we are comparing ourselves to someone who you barely know how they really survive. But I really appreciate and love the way you put it. You cited out the aspect of you standing out as an immigrant, taking your black color as a blessing in disguise. You actually cited out that same in your previous show. I would love us now to come to a Ugandan in the diaspora who feels that he's less privileged, and sadly enough, who feels entitled. You speaking from you having, I'll say made it, of course. I know you're very humble. You don't want to be scaled up, but you as so far made it, given time and age. We who are challenged with racism, we feel a Swedish doctor, or rather Ugandan doctor, cannot penetrate the Swedish market so easily. I have my bachelor's from Uganda, engineering bachelor's, but I cannot make it. Using your concept, your analogy of using your weakness as a blessing in this case. Yes, speak to immigrants generally in that aspect. Different walks of life. There are so many. We cannot name them all, but you get the concept.
Of course. I think this is a very important question, and I think it should not be taken lightly. And I think about this a lot. I spend a lot of time discussing with people from various walks of life to hear their input. And I think we touched about it a little bit. We touched on it in the last meeting regarding the culture differences. Like, to me, I think there's so much learning in why other nationalities seem to get into these societies faster than we do. Like, I can name my Persian friends, right? Why are they so much quicker in getting integrated or moving up in society than, for example, certain African countries? Like, we need to put ourselves in our lives. Like, why, if I walk around in Stockholm, as I said, I can see a Persian restaurant, or I can see a dry cleaner, or I see these businesses driven by Persians, even though they came to Sweden the same year we did. Or why can't I walk around anywhere and find a Ugandan restaurant? They're started now, but it took a few years. So I like to walk into other societies to see what learnings can we pick from there. So to go back to your question, right? So I am a Ugandan immigrant in any of the Scandinavian countries. I have a doctor's degree from Uganda. I come here, I need to start from square one. Okay, this is a challenge you cannot talk around it. This is a factual challenge, right? Yes, I need to learn the language, and then I need to learn the system, and then I need to have someone at least to take me seriously. So these are challenges that are factual by any path of walk of life. So these are the moments that I usually like to turn it around. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I was in a discussion with a lady from Ghana here in Sweden, highly educated, has several degrees, and she's a trained psychologist. And she told me, do you know that there are 0 Black psychologists in Sweden? There is a registry for all the psychologists in Sweden. She's like, I have gone through each and every one of them. There are 0 practicing psychologists in Sweden who are of African descent. This blew my mind. And the reason it blew my mind is because she said, there's my angle, right? Instead of, I've knocked on so many doors to try to, hey, I'm a serious psychologist, I have a degree, you should hire me. She said, okay, I should put all my effort into the African community, because there are nobody today who they can go and speak to about their mental challenges who would also understand them on a cultural level. So even though they need the help, they can't go to a Swedish psychologist and still get that granular help that they need. So she opened her own practice, and she said, my focus is on people of African descent. And within 6 months, her practice is blossoming. And these are the situations that I love. Exactly. You look at it and you said, this is my challenge, but what if I don't turn it around and look at the other way? Because, this is a whole market which is not being served. Now, just imagine the traumas that we've been through to get from Uganda to Sweden. What are those mental challenges? What are those emotional challenges? And if we don't speak the language, we can't express ourselves to a psychologist. And if they don't understand our cultural connection, we can't explain why it bothers us not to have matoke once a week. So, but if you go to a psychologist with the same background as you, so that's what I told my sister. I called her. I was like, hey, here is a market for you. If you, educate yourself to a psychologist, there is already a market where you will have work, because there's this whole market of immigrants who are not being served the way they should be. So this is the way, I guess, my brain works usually. It's like, you tell me, okay, you give me a challenge. I said, okay, turn it around. Why are you looking this way? Look at the other way and see, as a Lugandan speaking man, what can you do to serve the Ugandan community in Denmark or in Norway or in Sweden? So I guess this is what I would tell you to start. Okay, as an engineer, okay, you said you're an engineer living in Norway, trying to tell, okay, what engineering needs would the community that I already understand, both culturally, language-wise, and historically, what do they need that my skill can benefit them? Just like, okay, this is a clear example. Like, everyone living in Scandinavia knows where to get matoke, right? There's always a few stores, okay, and everyone knows because he realized there's a market here. I'm from India, but I need to bring in matoke. I will have customers. Same concept. You said, okay, there is a market here. There are all these Ugandans, and they might need the one thing that the Swedish community can give them. I will supply to them, and they will come to me. So
in other words, find a loophole in the system.
Exactly.
Yes. I love it when you bring this concept and then merge it with find your competitive advantage. You said find something that makes you unique. I want to greet you and thank you, viewers who are watching you on Facebook. Nsereko Zahara says, living in a small town in Norway, I have always been a minority, but it's always worked to my advantage, and it has made me grow a wide and unique profile. Yes, yes, Johnny Nielsen also says we can, as well as immigrants, integrate into these foreign societies, culture, and the foreign job market, stroke customer scoop. We now have to live in and also raise kids, and at the end of the day, come out satisfied with life and fulfilled dreams come through. Matovu Abu says they spend more. I think in this context, we immigrants, they spend more time wanting welfare services. They mostly have children with absent fathers first, then think of a career and education. Any society where fathers are absent can't flourish. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with him on that?
Okay. So any society where the fathers are absent can't flourish. No, I don't say I would necessarily agree, but I say he's right that, of course, it adds another layer of challenge. And, he's not wrong, because that very thing he just brought up, I have been, again, really fascinated with that, because I've lived in Uganda, I've lived in Sweden, I've lived in the UK, I've lived in the US. And all these 4 countries that I lived in for many years, irreplaceable of each other. Like, the running joke is that, Black people, their fathers are never present in their lives. Honestly, let's think about that. Like, first, as a Black person, you can be offended, but then you pause. You said, okay, where did this come from? You can't have a joke in 4 countries because they don't know each other, the Swedes and the Americans, but yet everyone always makes fun of the fact that in a Black community, the father is always absent. And then, right? And then I want you to pause and think about that. So maybe that's the time to stop and look at ourselves. Like, what is the behavior that we have that it doesn't matter if we live in the US or the UK or Sweden. This is the behavior our communities display. And I was so fascinated. I started researching this. I wanted to understand what's the historical context. Is there a historical context maybe? Like, why do we see in other cultures they stick together as a family more than we do in our cultures? Why is our fathers always absent? Whether physically or emotionally, our fathers are not there, right? In America, there is a term called the walking blues. When you have a chance, then you can Google it, right?
The walking blues, okay.
The walking blues, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So this term basically means that this is what the African American, i.e. the Black fathers, used to do back in the days, is that you would have a family in one city, and then you would just pack your things and you keep walking on until the next city, and you start a family there, and you keep walking on. So they call it the walking blues, and this is where the genre of music blues came from, because blues is about the sadness and so they named it a term. There's a term for how our communities act, and that in itself should give us enough warning to say, okay, maybe we need to change ourselves. So I like his comment because, yeah, I think there is a level there of us to look at ourselves to see, are there behavior that are historical in the way that we acted for way too many years, that before we want a lot of things, maybe we need to change it.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to greet you all. Send greetings to you, Henry in Fredrikstad, Flavia. I see Senjala, Zahara Seriko, Join, Bumatov in Norway, Hajat Mariam Luyombia, yes, the mom, and many others I may not have seen. There was also a comment, someone dropped a comment saying that he got to know about Euroforum through a link that was posted in one of the WhatsApp groups. I want to send greetings to you and thank you for bringing that, and also request anyone watching right now to please share this message. Keep on sharing the message, more so messages about such. Fadu Liombia, I want to send greetings to you, also watching from Sweden. And yes, picking it up from Bumatov's comment about absent fathers and your American saying. The topic is about challenges. Do you, Faizal, realize and maybe agree that there are those challenges which we create? I mean, in a way, create, and then after which we run for answers, or we run for solutions or refuge. Are there those challenges? Just putting in context, because we are looking beyond the challenge or beyond the challenge. But you and I, we are both fathers, and we don't believe in being present. And when we groom problem children to the world, then there is an issue, and that is a challenge. Is that challenge natural, or in a way I have a hand in that?
You know, again, I've really tried to comprehend the magnitude of this question, because, as you say, we're all grown enough to have children of our own, but yet we have had our own fathers in our lives, which one would say they come from very African mentalities, right? So there was one end, you try to understand what have they had to do in order for us to live here? Which are the sacrifices they've had to take in order for us to say that we are Swedish or Norwegian or Danish citizens? And the reason I think I always ask myself this question, because our fathers are not equipped with the emotional or the communication tools to express these things. unfortunately, right? Because come from a world where they say, hey, listen, you have children and they are an asset to you to help out in the house, to work in the garden. They're an asset. You don't really have time to be there emotionally. And this is understandable because this is the times we come from. And then you had to lift these people and put them in a context where we require much more from them. Because you go out into the Scandinavian environments and you look at, oh, wow, look, their fathers are emotionally present and they can discuss with them and they can have, and then we say, why don't we have that? So we come and when we have these challenges to them and they say, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for that. Mm-hmm. I am a grown person who moved to this country. I need to struggle to learn the language. I need to struggle to find a job to keep food on your table. So the older I've got, the more I understand the struggles they've been through. So what I've realized that what can I do? I can proactively look for the tools to become a much more present father myself, but I can also find the tools to be a much more present son to our fathers. And I'll say our, I mean not my only biological one, all the uncles and aunties and all the Ugandan community that is taking care of me. Because, you said my success is not only based on what my family have done to me. The whole Ugandan community has always supported me. So we know what they've gone through. So again, to me, it comes back to personal responsibility. At some point you realize, okay, when do I stop blaming my parents? And when do I start saying, because I'm a grown person, for how long am I going to say, oh, the reason I don't have emotional capabilities is because my parents were never there? Okay, I understand. That was probably valid when you were a kid. But when you decided I am a grown person now, when do you start proactively finding the tools to be both a better parent, but then also a better child to your parents? Okay, I'll give you one concrete example. As a child to my parents, I've done a lot of things that I today as a grown person regret deeply and that I can never take back. And I'll give you one practical example. When I moved to the US, in my head, I was convinced that it was a one-way ticket, that I was not going to come back because, as a teenager and adolescence, you feel misunderstood, right? You're like, okay, my parents don't understand me. In my head, I'm a Swedish person, but they're very African. They don't give me the freedom I need. They don't give me the tools I need to become the best version of me. Okay, I need to find my own freedom. So moving to the US, to me, that was my way of finding out who am I outside of my immediate heritage, of the responsibilities I must have as a Ugandan son. So for me, it was a great time to find out, okay, maybe I like partying. I don't know. Because in my household, I never get a chance to party. They said, somero. Maybe I like to party. I don't know. Or maybe I like these type of sports. I don't know. So it was a freedom for me, right? But within that freedom was also an anger. As an 18-year-old boy, you were angry at your parents for what you felt that maybe some things they hadn't done enough. Why didn't they come to my football game? Or why didn't they come when I had this concert? So it was important for me so that I could make it on my own. So I swore to myself when I jumped on that plane, I said, during these 4 years that I'm studying at university in America, I will never call home and ask for money, right? I don't want to put that burden on my parents. I will do whatever it takes. If I need to have 5 jobs, I will do that. If I need to study in the middle of the night, I'm never going to ask them for money. I want to show them I can stand on my own feet. So in one sense, this is a good thinking, but you know what happens? 4 years, and then it's time for me to graduate, right? I'm going to get my degree. And my mom asks me, when are you getting your degree? Which date is it? We want to come to America to celebrate you. Mm-hmm. And in my anger, I said, no, I'm not going to tell them because I've done this on my own, right? I needed to leave Sweden to find myself, to become the man that I am. So it's my victory to take. So even though my parents asked me when the date was, I was still so angry at them for what I felt that I'd been losing. So I never gave them the dates. So graduation day came, and the moment I got up on that stage, I'd realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life.
Mm.
The moment I stood up there and they gave me my diploma and they shared my name, I've never felt so alone in my life. And I've never felt so unfair that I had robbed my mother from this moment. Because that's when I realized you can run how far you want to any country you want, but you can never cut your ties from who you are. And just because you graduated, it has fucking nothing to do with you. This is not your win. This is your parents' win. They raised you for all these years. They gave food on your table. Just because you were angry at them as a teenager, it gives you no right to rob them from this moment. And until this today, 36 years old, I still regret that I never invited them to be on my graduation, because that was not for me to celebrate. That was for my parents, my Ugandan community, and my entire family to celebrate. So that was one of the moments I realized it's up to me to become a better son for my parents. And it's not up to them as a grown-up to be better parents, because they have their challenges and they have their baggage. So if I've given this opportunity to at least be able to think about it, it's up to me to bridge that gap.
Thank you. You know, Faizal, something very unique about you is that you don't really sound a man who has grown up in Stockholm for the rest of for actually all your life, because an average youth, European youth, is not this humble. So the aspect of giving credit where it's due is more like gold, and I want to thank you for that. The question of absent fathers, which Abumatov ignited, of course, also speaking as a father who has a daughter in Uganda. Given somebody's rating, I don't know how I'm rated. I don't know how I'm rated. Yeah. But agreeing with you and not to sound like not to sound on the defense, I want also to agree that in as much as there are those chain of expectations from our parents, but we also stand a ground to own up. Even at a certain point, actually, it is very important to also know that a son today is a father tomorrow. A daughter today is a mother tomorrow. So as we point fingers, as we demand and even use certain degrading words, we ought to know that sometimes the absent fathers try their best. Sometimes absent mothers, of course, there are not so many, but maybe there are a few. They try their best. So, and also knowing that the entitlement also overwhelms us when we feel we deserve more than we get or what we have. Abumatov adds, I think, is more fascinated with, okay, I'll read this comment as well. Look at the Indian immigrants in the US and Europe. Almost everywhere they've settled, they've taken over the medical field, technology world and businesses. Even look at our banana republic, of course, Uganda. They are the most successful, okay, of course, in Uganda, but their families are intact. So he asserts that the aspect of absent fathers is one of, yes. But okay, that aside, I might have quoted John, quoted the Bible, John 10:10-29. I'll request you to just copy it and paste it here in the comments so that even others can read the content. Yes, Faizal, taking it broader, as we wind up, we are speaking about family, we are speaking about work, we are speaking about these things. They're all interrelated. There is a thread of the survival mode that should click in when the challenge seems too hard. Taking it down to an immigrant as well. I'm zeroing so much to immigrants, okay? Because we don't have so much space to run when we are entangled in stresses and chains. An immigrant who has really tried his way out. And there is this challenge he has managed to master the game, to be opportunistic, like you and Zahara pointed out. And there's also mastered the aspect of surviving. But when all has failed, okay, you're a family man, you work here, but all has failed. Do you see a window? Okay, applying all this you've said, Faizal, but all has failed. Do you see a window? Because this, trying to be very sensitive, I want to connect it to the so many suicide cases, so many depression cases that we've read, witnessed, and heard about in Europe. But is there a window when all has failed, a window of hope that you would recommend?
Well, I think it's good that you do raise these questions of mental health, or you have challenges that it's only in your head, or you don't know how, you can't see a way out. And I think, again, we've all been there. I think I've been in situations where I thought I deserved a certain outcome and I didn't get it. And I remember a specific situation. I was on the streets of London. I applied for this job, and by all accounts, I thought I deserve this job, and they didn't give it to me. And I called him up, and he told me specifically, he's like, yeah, you did a great interview, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel comfortable hiring a Black person. This is my personal opinion. I stick with it. It's my company. Goodbye. Click. Right? And the reason I bring up this situation, because I remember how angry I got at the universe, at God, and started saying, where do I go from here? There's no level of unfairness about this. How can I have done everything right by the book, and yet this person tells me, yeah, I just don't feel like, you might be a great guy, but no. And I remember exactly, I was on the streets of London, and I cried and I yelled, and I was like, I give up on you. I was talking to God, the big guy upstairs, and I was like, why do you do this? Why? And I had this huge moment of just yelling on the streets. And the reason why it sticks to me is because it's that, exactly. It's usually once when you think there is no other outcome, the way the universe works out is because it has something better in store for you. And for someone, it might just sound like words, but to me, I genuinely believe this, because all the good examples I've seen in my life has been exactly that, is that when I'm denied something I thought I had the right to, it usually is because around the corner comes something that's even more satisfactory, that even gives not only me, but the people around me more. So I think I've just, over the years, become steadfast in that notion and believe blindly in it. So I guess to answer your question directly, what do you do when there are no more outlets left? Well, the beautiful thing now is we live in a connected world. I don't think we could say that 15 or 20 years ago. So reach out, ask for help, and ask for advice or ask for input, because I think we are many enough that someone has something of value to give you. And one other aspect that it might be silly, but it has actually worked for me. On my computer, I have a folder over the years where I have saved all the examples I've found of what you're describing now. Immigrants who are in a country who maybe not there legally, who, they don't have the papers or they don't have the permits, yet they have done something astonishing, and today we're utilizing this. Everything from WhatsApp. They were started by 2 immigrants in the US who had no right to be there, to what do you call those calling cards that started in Norway that we used? Is it Rebtel? Or so I have this folder where I've saved down all these examples. And it really does help to see that. I think it's just a question of feeling that you're not alone, that there have been people before you who have walked this path, who have managed to solve this situation. And I think I think every person, we're all looking for representation, right? To find good examples of people who look like us or sound like us or have similar backgrounds as us.
Yeah, sure.
Manage to break through. So the more representation you put in your life as examples, I think the easier it will be to get that motivation back. So yeah, whenever times are tough, I go back to this folder and I bring up these examples where time and again, there have been incidents of people who have made it in exactly similar situations as most of us immigrants or Ugandan immigrants are in right now.
Yes. Yeah, you see, Faizal, I love the way you approach questions. You're either the experience has groomed you this way, or it's you personally, but I love the way you really sensitively approach these questions. I know the questions I'm asking are not the usual ones, but again, they must be addressed. But I love it that the choice of having you as the guest was a perfect one, and that I must commend you. I must also commend you on camera and confess this on camera that yes, I know you. I am somewhere in public speaking, but I love your eloquence, confidence, and composure when speaking. This is a confession on air, and I love admiring people openly. That I commend you for. Fahad Riombia, who is also living in Sweden, has a comment here. There are many challenges growing up here as immigrants in Europe. When you see, he adds, when you see the struggles your parents and you feel as a Black child that that you had no belonging. Yes, that's right. He also adds that you learn how to face the difficulties in life and not to give up. I think that's a hard lesson, a really hard one. Abumatov says that mental health, yes, he exclaims mental health. I once put my shoes inside the fridge. Okay, yes, that's mental health. And Harriet Mirembe Namoeje Kutumirako Nyabo, she also adds that we are proud of what our children we raised in the 90s and early 2000s have become. You probably know this lady. And in as much as she says our children, but she's indirectly saying our children like Faizal Luttamaguzi. People are proud of you, and I want to send greetings to everyone watching. Please keep on sharing this message. Faizal Luttamaguzi is our guest today. He lives in Sweden. He has lived in Sweden for almost all his lifetime. And he's the founder of Stockholm, Tours of Stockholm, a chain of companies. There is also Tours of New York, Tours of London. Before we wind up, you tell us more about Tours of Oslo. Yes, please drop in any question you feel we would merge in this topic. The topic is beyond the challenge. Like I said in the start, challenges are constant in life. But the only difference, the perception and how different people maneuver through them. Yes, Faizal, as we wind up, merging the business aspect, there is a saying that it's not easy to invest in the diaspora. And of course, people say, and I also agree that Europe kills fighting spirits in terms of business. You as a businessman, I've seen small businesses growing, and many of them don't even celebrate their second birthday. How have you managed to keep yourself afloat?
Oh, wow. Again, I think it's hard to answer since you don't have reference, like you said, to those other businesses. But you said, okay, most small businesses don't make it past 2 years, but this is not only immigrant businesses. This is businesses in general. I think starting an idea and make it survive over the past 2 years is hard, no matter who you are or what you do. Unless you come in with already capital ready, it's not an easy task. Of course not. And for me, I think before I started the business, I was already pretty comfortable with the sacrifices I was ready to make. And I think this has helped, is that before you start on your mission, ask yourself, what are the sacrifices I am ready to make for this? And I'll give you an example, because I think this helps you, because when the moment comes of making a choice, you have already made that choice. Because you sat down before and you said, okay, this is what I'm willing to do, or this is how far I'm willing to go. So when you come in those challenging moments and you're reaching 2 years and things are either going south or not, decision has already been made by you before you started. So, okay, what are the sacrifices I've made? I can tell you right now, I haven't watched a Netflix show probably over the past 3 years. If you ask me anything,
What?
A Netflix show or movie, right? Like you ask me Netflix, what do you watch? Right? Because before I started already, this was a sacrifice I was willing to make. I said, when other people come home and they said, oh, I need to relax now, let me watch some Netflix. To me, I was already made that decision is that this is not going to be an option for me, not at least until my business is up and running. So I was already comfortable with taking away that option, or okay, going out to the clubs or drinking. Before I started, I said, okay, this option is already off the table. So I made it easier for myself. So when Friday evening came, back in the then when I was trying to start my business, I said, okay, it's Friday now. My friend's like, hey, do you want to come out with us to go clubbing? In my head, I said, okay, I have this vision and I believe in it. So the answer is already no. I don't have to think in the moment. So these are the sacrifices. Now I'm giving a simplified version I was willing to make before I started, and that I made maybe for 3 years straight. So I didn't go out partying for 3 years because I said, okay, if I'm going to give this an honest chance, this is the sacrifice I'm okay to make. So then it wasn't a hard choice every time it was Friday or Saturday evening. And people were going out, then I was going home and learning how to build websites. Or people going out and I was running around recruiting restaurants. When people were going out, I was flying to Oslo, like I did 3 years ago, to meet with you, to say, hey, I have this idea. I know it sounds crazy, but so that helps, I think, if you sit down with yourself and ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? And it will be sacrifices. Maybe mine were not that harsh, but for other people, it might be, time with your loved ones, or you sacrifice a little bit of your, vacation time. Maybe you won't be able to travel for 2 years. And if you sit okay with you, then you make that choice and you give it all you have.
Yes, thank you, Faizal. You're more adding it. You're adding spices to almost an already made soup. Just love the depth at which you go, and yes, thinking business, thinking social life, the two are inseparable. And I love it when you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go back to the comment he made in the comments about mental health and putting his shoes in the fridge.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I think, again, let's go back to what we spoke about before. So, okay, so first of all, thank you for sharing and being so open to share these incidents that you've had, because I think there are so many Ugandans out there who have struggled or are struggling with mental health, but we don't talk about it. So speaking exactly what we spoke about there. So if there is a Ugandan out there who has studied psychology or is studying psychology or wants to be, this is your moment. Through the Uganda Forum UG, you will find your customers, because people will come to you because now people are sharing that they have mental struggles. So if they can speak to a fellow countryman or woman, if they can speak to somebody who knows their culture, you already have a pool of 2,000 people where you will find your future customers. And for you, Moses, as an engineer, this is your pool. You have 2,000 people following Uganda Forum UG. So ask them, okay, what, from an engineering perspective, could my community need that I can give them? So I think I think you've built a platform where people don't be afraid to reach out or to ask. I said, hey, this is my skill. How can I apply this to the community that already understands me and that I understand? Because I think, this is where to start. So for all of you who are struggling, I think it would be lovely to have a fellow Ugandan as a psychologist in Scandinavia that you can actually turn to.
That was very important to highlight, and thank you so much. And I hope the message is heard loudly and clearly. To the Ugandan network in Norway. You remember during our Christmas party, we were to have a guest of honor from Sweden. And you remember that there was one we talked about, many knew him, but he's the gentleman, Faizal Luttamaguzi. You are expected actually here in Oslo. You were meant to be the guest of honor, but maybe tasks collided. And there are beautiful comments here. I think we shall take this. You respond to this as we wind up. So many of them. In the first place, a big thank you to anyone watching, and a double thank you for someone out there who has shared, and a triple thank you for one who does both, the three actually. Watching, sharing, and dropping an interaction. It may be anything, by the way. Like we always say, Euroforum is a platform for all. There are no statuses, there are no ranks. Come for as long as you have a head on your shoulders. You get a green ticket to be hosted on Euroforum and to share something. There is a comment. Okay, there is an African proverb here from Abuma Tovu. And it says, I am because we are. And because we are, I am. I think that speaks volumes. Harriet Mirembe Namaweje poses a question to you here, Faizal. She asks, how can we be better parents to your young brothers and sisters so we can avoid the mistakes we did in the 90s and 2000s by being too strict?
Strict.
Yes, strict. Yeah, it was strict.
Yeah.
Before we were young parents, and now we are old parents. I think we can take question by question. We can respond to that first.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question. And I think what I've learned is communication. I think as Africans, this part we've never really been good at. And even I can tell you, who professionally get paid to stand on stage and communicate, I still have a long way to go when it comes to interpersonal communication, to communicating with my siblings or my parents. And I think we come from cultures where you don't speak unless spoken to as a child, right? Exactly. The grown-ups are talking, you don't talk. And I think this has made that we have missed a lot in communication. I always go back to talking about I want to be a philosopher, because I realize in those conversations, this is where the magic happens. So to answer your question, I think don't be afraid to educate ourselves in the communication tools. Just asking our children, how are you? How was school today? Not to ask, did you get a good grade? Yes or no? Have you done your homework? Just, okay, what's on your mind? So I think we will win a lot just by talking for the sake of talking, by learning to communicate for the sake of communicating. Because even though now our parents are old, okay, I'll give you an example, which always makes me laugh, right? When we talk to fellow Ugandans and talk to other people my age, or like we all grew up here. Like the one joke we always make about our parents, you know what it is? Is the fact that they expect you to grow up, but they never tell you when that is. Right? Like this is always so funny, as in like, okay, you're a teenager, right? You're 16, 17, 18, they tell you, no girlfriends, no boyfriends, school, no party. And then all of a sudden they say, hey, why aren't you married yet? Where are my grandchildren?
And they also add,
right? So something happens there. They go from, don't even look at girls or boys. And then they say, hey, where are my grandchildren? So you say, whoa. When did this change happen and why? So you see what I mean is that for some reason, they have this in their head when they expect you to grow up, but for them, there is no room to date. Like maybe it's not in our culture, you don't date or experience. So the fact that they don't talk to you or communicate with you when they expect you to go from to just look at
when you date a man, I know they say.
Right? Exactly. So this is a joke. No matter which Ugandan you meet, you can have this laugh about this. Because then what happens is that you go from being a child and you can't talk to your parents because they tell you, somero. So you can't talk to them like, hey, I'm in love, or I have this girlfriend or boyfriend. And then all of a sudden they expect you to be in a relationship and be married, but they've taught you to be quiet about it. So now you can't even communicate with them, whether you meet somebody who is important to you. And then they wonder, why don't you tell me anything? Because I think So to communicate, I think, is the first, and yeah, maybe we don't have the tools, but then we go educate ourselves to find the tools.
Thank you so much. Yeah. To communicate.
Yes.
I think that's a very key word. Yes. Rita Vitariho, greetings to you. She says sacrificing to achieve your goal is equal to being uncomfortable to achieve the desired comfort. Wow.
Very good.
I love such reflections. And then Nsereho Zahara says, and this is what people should learn, people who are rich and in business make so much sacrifice that we ordinary people can't see. That's right. Yes, yes, there are so many other comments. I want to send special greetings to you, Alan Sandy, watching from Dubai. Those watching from Uganda, you really do us a great service. We appreciate and respect that the internet bundles and data are not as cheap as we find them in Europe. Thank you for sparing time to watch and also sharing interactions here. Joey Nilsson says, as a parent, I appreciate advice clearly understood. So your point has reached home. Yes, just to wind this up, I see, of course, I'm so sorry if I skip your comments. Yeah, in the interest of time, I'm held hands tight. I may not be able to read all the comments, but please bear with me. But just know that the comment, someone else reads it and be moved. Faizal, as we wind up, yeah, speak to me on how I should get a clear-cut difference between these two words. Between these two words. Mm-hmm. Deserving, or in this case, earning something. Mm-hmm. And then the feeling of being entitled. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we often mix this. Mm-hmm. Okay, the fact that I help you, I pay for your school fees in Uganda, I feel you must respect me, so I deserve. Mm-hmm. We once hosted someone who shared a perspective which some people after the show had divergent views about. Mm-hmm. You who has grown up in a country full of privileges, some people call it a land of milk and honey. Mm-hmm. Yes, but you still believe you cannot take a grant. Someone dropped a comment on WhatsApp when he heard you say you cannot take a grant. Do you mean to say you don't feel deserving for that? You don't feel entitled for that? Yeah. Or you're too bigger than the Swedish welfare system, that you feel no. So as we wind up, just cast a light on that. Deserving, entitlement, yes, and maybe earning something.
Exactly. Well, I think I can put it this way. So we move to these countries, right? And one of the first benefits we'll learn about are the social benefits, right? Wow, we can come here and we get paid to have children, right? This is a huge benefit based on where we come from. We get social security or social services. They give us money if we don't have a job, right? Of course, it's perfect to help you if you're starting from scratch. But of course, I'm not in need of that money. So two reasons, right? I don't take this grant because I don't need it. So that means there's somebody else out there who needs it more than I do. That's the first thing. The second thing for me is I always like to, we all have people we look up to or people who we can learn from. And if I look at people I've interacted with, Swedish businessmen or people who run successful businesses here in Sweden, again, they don't rely on the grants. So the grants are there, of course, to help the masses. But if you feel like, okay, I can survive without them, why take them? Because to me, what happens is that it is a security of some sort. But a security can also mean sometimes that it stops you from pushing more than you probably could have. That's only my personal take on it, is that it helps me to push even further. The ideas flow so it's not that I don't deserve it. Probably by all means I do, or entitlement. My personal opinion is that I honestly don't feel entitled to anything. because I don't feel entitled to life. Again, it's not promised to me, because like we all know, it's a privilege to life.
Faizal, you're so moving, eh?
No, but honestly, like sometimes I can just sit and be thankful of the fact that I can think. Like, have you ever had that feeling? Just like the fact that I can think this clear thought is a blessing in itself. So yeah, to answer your question clearly, I am not entitled to anything, not even my own life. But I only have it because my parents decided that they wanted to give me to this world. And once I got to this world, I guess I see myself more as a servant of the greater good than someone who is entitled to the greater good.
Can you rephrase that statement?
I say I feel myself as a servant to the greater good than someone who is entitled to the greater good.
Wow. Faizal. I must confess that the last time I hosted you, I went off the norm when I actually ended up going past the time, because you're so fascinating to listen to. I love those phrases. I'll just go back to the video, and I believe someone out there perceives you the same way I do. You're a public speaker, a motivational speaker. Before you wind up, I would love you to really brand and market out the Faizal Luttamaguzi. I know you, but so many others watching you here don't know you. And I also believe that your scale of operation is intercontinental, the fact that we are digital now. So I would love you to speak, to say something about the Faizal Luttamaguzi, as you will also remind us when we shall have tours of Oslo. One comment here to read, Zahara Nsereko says, I'm a single mom. Okay, personal experience here. Okay, I'm a single mom and I could be given financial help if I wanted. But if I wanted to, but I work 6 days a week to make ends meet, because money, wow. Let me just read this. I'm a single mom and I could be given financial help if I wanted to, but I work 6 days a week to make ends meet, because money you have worked for is better than handouts, and contributing to society is a good thing by paying tax. Wow. Zahara Nsereko is one of the residents or citizens of Norway. Rare to get such perspectives and mindsets. So now you have you have a twin, Faizal. You have a twin. You have someone who thinks just like you. Yes, thank you for sharing from personal experience. And she also adds, thanks for the show. It was great, and we appreciate your knowledge. Okay, thank you, our dear viewers. I will repeat this. We really appreciate your time. A special thank you to a Ugandan watching from Asia, some countries, but particularly Ugandan watching from Uganda. The internet bundles and, of course, the time difference means so much to us. As we wind up, the Faizal Luttamaguzi Omusajja Omugave. Speak to us about you, this motivational someone. Where do we find you? How do we get you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. I can leave you my number happily. So please reach out, because again, as we speak about before, I do take a great deal of my time, not just because I think a lot of us Ugandans, we have confidence. That's one thing. I think we're comfortable.
Yeah, just before you continue, if you read me your number, I type it here in the comments. Maybe many people will not be maybe comfortable to contact privately in our chats. If you could just drop it here as we speak.
One moment. You want me to? I don't know it by heart, so.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You can just check it up.
Let's see. What is my number?
Because maybe at times we are lazy to send these contacts when people need them.
Yes, please reach out. I think it's always good to. So my number is +46.
Yes, I have it.
73140.
73140.
8655.
8655.
Yes.
I wrote +46 731 408 655, right?
Correct.
Yes. It's yes for anyone. Yes, you are still branding and selling out to the Faizal, the motivational speaker.
No, but yeah, I guess okay. So this motivational speaking, where did it start? Again, it started as an invitation, right? I someone I worked with said, "Oh wow, you should come speak at my dad's company." And again, her dad worked for Ericsson, one of the biggest companies in Sweden, one of the biggest branches. So to me, it fascinated me. I said, okay, of all the people you can invite in to inspire the people who are owners of this country, why me? Right? I always ask myself, but why me? Because then she said, you have a story to tell, right? You have a perspective that I think could be worth listening to. And I think ever from that incident, I realized, going back to what we said before, I'm not going to get a stage. And when I get up there, they will listen. So make sure to say something worth listening to. So, of course, I spent several years educating myself, sharpening my skills, going on courses, learning from the best out there. And of course, when it comes to motivational speaking, I do have a goal and a dream in itself, is that I'm convinced that one day I will stand on a TED stage and do a TED talk that will be remembered far beyond my time on this earth. And so this is what my goal is with this.
Hands together for you, brother. Yes, thank you, Faizal. A comment surely worth taking on. Rita Itariho says, very good affirmation, Faizal. Thankful for being able to think. A good reminder to us to always remember our affirmations. Mm-hmm. Yes, there is so much to take from you, Faizal, and I can never have enough of you. And I would really say this on camera that not so far from now, we shall need to host you again, Faizal, to get more of you. And to any of you out there who would love to get tips, business tips, he's a businessman with a very big chain of companies. He has so much on his plate, and he believes, as much as I've shared with him privately, that him lighting from his candle to light 1,000 candles, it's never been a problem, because his light never diminishes. So that's his mindset. And I mean, Harriet Mirembe says, okay, Teddy Talk. Okay, she also, yes, affirms to that dream. As we wind up, I made a post on my WhatsApp status when I said that at times we don't need to just be led by the quest to acquire more information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need to pause a bit and refer to our archives. There is a lot of information that we just need to review and reflect upon, and go to that to tap it in and make it new for you. Yes, Faizal, as we wind up, I just wanted to throw that, and also remind members here, viewers here watching, that there is so much info on Euroforum. If you could just pause a bit and go back to what people have shared, there is so much that you can take for yourself. Faizal, painfully, I'll ask you to give your closing remarks. I would love us to push for another 1 hour, but painfully.
No, as always, it's a pleasure to share thoughts and discussions with like-minded individuals. And again, to all the Ugandans out there, it's lovely and heartwarming to see how engaged you are in these discussions. And I think this is just the beginning. There is so much for us to explore together. And with initiatives like this, with the Euroforum, I think Moses is on a huge step there. So don't be strangers. Whatever anyone can add to this, please do add. Reach out to Moses, reach out to all of us. Because I think, what does it say? It takes a village to raise a child. And I think the Ugandan village in Scandinavia has become large enough for us to do something meaningful for ourselves.
Thank you so much, Faizal. We shall call it off here for now. Before I forget, William Senkumba from San Francisco. Greetings to you, and thank you for tuning in. Euroforum team, you do a tremendous job. The man behind the camera, what we see, of course, ideally, the usual setting of a physical session, but there is someone behind making these things happen. The layout you see on the screen, Gibson Omuhumuza, he's our colleague in Uganda. Just to cast a light, Euroforum is the platform that has members here in the Scandinavian, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Norway, and also members in Uganda. Gibson Omuhumuza is one of them, and then Izia Jr. Greetings to you all. Thank you for working as a team. Faizal, thank you for sparing time to come share your knowledge. Most importantly, your time. We really appreciate. We sign out for now. Our dear viewers, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Sunday.